Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down a huge storm that is going to be impacting the United States over the next couple of days. And this storm is going to bring a ton of different problems, including the potential of some significant severe weather tomorrow into Monday. In addition to this, there will be a large winter storm across the central and northern plains. Even parts of the Midwest will see some significant snowfall, and the Northeast, which is still seeing snow right now. That'll continue all the way through tonight. I'll be giving you the latest breakdown on everything that you need to know in this forecast, and let's begin with what's happening right now in the United States to give you an idea of what these two different large storms are doing here across the country. And we will begin with the first large storm that is moving right now across the East Coast. Notice all of this convection stretching from the Northeast back into Florida. We actually had a couple of tornado warnings last night in southern Florida. We had one this morning over in the Keys. At this point, most of the action is shifting offshore, and only thing that's left at this point is our low pressure system that's back up here in the Northeast that is still going to bring some snowfall for the next few hours, in addition to some minor flooding concerns across parts of southern New England. I'll be talking about that here in just a moment. In case you are in those areas and you still are wondering when this is ending, it should be ending tonight, but I'll give you a bit more of a detailed breakdown in just a moment. Back over in the Great Plains, this area needs to be on alert both tomorrow and as well as even early Monday. There will be a large storm crossing this area with snowfall, severe weather, and very high winds, by the way. There are already high wind advisories and warnings being issued across the southern plains due to the fact that wind gusts as high as 55 miles per hour will be possible both tomorrow and even into early Monday, which could cause a fire concern, one, back over in West Texas, in addition to the potential for some flying trampolines. So we'll be breaking that down for you here in just a moment. And here's your large storm. It's all the way back over, actually, right now located just west of Oregon and Washington. All of this energy, though, will be crossing over the Rocky Mountains over the next 24 hours, creating a low pressure center over areas like Colorado, Nebraska, and Kansas. And then we'll eventually be talking about the threat of severe weather and a winter storm as we go into late Sunday and as well as into Monday, and that'll eventually end as we go into Tuesday. With that being said, there are tons of problems coming with this next large storm as we go into tomorrow. Notice all the different watches and warnings across the country. We have winter storm warnings in effect for the northern plains and the upper Midwest. In addition to this, we do have wind advisories in effect for parts of central Texas, even back into Kansas. High wind warnings in effect as well for parts of West Texas, and we have red flag warnings in effect for areas like the Texas Panhandle, West Texas, and as well as the Oklahoma Panhandle due to the potential of wildfires tomorrow. Once again, this area dealing with very dry weather and high winds that'll lead to a ton of problems with the wildfire potential. In addition to that, there will be the threat of severe weather just east of that area. So really crazy stuff there. And then back over in the Northeast, including New England, we still have winter storm warnings in effect through tonight before all of that activity begins to move out. Over the next few hours in New England and in the Northeast, a lot of the snow is still ongoing at this hour across northern and central New England. Areas like central New Hampshire are getting dumped with heavy snow right now. Very low visibility, but by around 9 o'clock tonight, most of that snow is all moving into Maine with very light snow remaining in northern New Hampshire. Eventually, as we go into the overnight hours, all the snow is out of here, and we are going to be done talking about snow in the Northeast, at least for now. I don't see any more big winter storms on the horizon, but a few more inches of snow will be possible over the next few hours, in addition to some flooding across southern New England. All right, let's talk more about this very large storm that's coming to the Great Plains, the Midwest, the Southeast, and even the East Coast as we go throughout the week. This very easily could be the largest storm that we've had all March long. Now, when I say largest storm, I don't necessarily mean it's going to bring the most significant severe weather that we've seen all month, because obviously the event that we just had last week with over a dozen tornadoes from the Ohio Valley back into Texas was very impactful on its own, but that brought a lot of severe weather. This particular storm will be very large, and it will likely be larger than the last storm, but it's a little bit different because we have two different threats, which is one being a winter storm that'll actually be impacting the country this time. The last storm really didn't bring much of a winter storm to the United States, and this one will also bring severe weather, but a little bit more condensed in terms of the risk. It's not nearly as large as the last event when it comes to the severe weather threat, because that one extended again from the Ohio Valley back into the southern plains. This one will be extending from the central and southern plains back into the southeast, so a little bit more of a smaller surface area overall. So this is what we're talking about tomorrow morning. Low pressure system moving across areas like the Rocky Mountains. We'll be dealing with a winter storm threat from the Rocky Mountains back into the northern plains as we go into tomorrow morning. Notice there will be some rain across the central plains and the southern plains, but that is not our our severe weather threat. That severe weather threat will develop during the afternoon, and I'm going to break that down for you more in detail here in just a moment. Notice the winter storm is going to be ongoing anywhere from the Midwest back into the northern plains. For those in Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Dakotas, or even into northern Nebraska, get ready because a lot of significant snowfall is coming to a store near you. Once we go into Monday morning, that snow potential will really increase. We are likely going to get some moderate to heavy snowfall right along that low pressure system, these sharp contours here. That is where the heaviest of the snowfall will be falling. So primarily from southern Minnesota back into central Nebraska and back even into Colorado. A line of storms will be ongoing in Texas, Oklahoma, and eventually into Arkansas and Louisiana, where there will be a threat of severe weather. And then once we go into late Monday into Tuesday, that snow potential will start to drag more to the east, mainly impacting areas in Minnesota by Tuesday morning, and eventually by Wednesday we are done with this large storm. Now that I've given you the big rundown on what this storm will be doing and who it's impacting, let's talk more about the specific details with how much snow you'll be seeing in addition to the severe weather potential. And we're going to first begin with the severe weather threat. This is tomorrow. We do currently have a slight risk of severe weather, which is a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. What that basically means is that it's a low to medium risk of severe weather. That does include northern Oklahoma back through a large chunk of central Kansas. We have a marginal threat as well that goes from southern Nebraska all the way back into north and central Texas. And for those that are in southern Oklahoma or back into north or central Texas, this is a bit more of a conditional risk of severe weather. And what I mean by that is that the threat of severe weather is going to depend on if storms develop. And there's a chance that they don't develop. And if they don't develop, we're not going to see severe weather. But if they do develop, large hail and damaging winds will be possible, maybe a brief tornado. But I do think that threat stays low overall. We will definitely see some storms, though, overnight Sunday into Monday morning. Now, the main concern for tomorrow will be large hail. That's the main concern across the board. I don't think we're going to see many storms above 2-inch diameter hail like we saw last week, but there will at least be a chance for some hail in the change-sized hail category, maybe up to golf ball-sized hail. There's also a threat of damaging winds that'll be primarily across areas in southern Kansas and northern Oklahoma. Now, the big thing you're probably wondering about is the tornado risk. And yes, there is an increased tornado risk for tomorrow. We do have a 5% tornado probability across southern Kansas and as well as northern Oklahoma. I would not be shocked if we had some sort of small 10% risk with this, but I don't think there's enough confidence there for there to be a 10% tornado risk at this time. And the main reason why is because the moisture content is not going to be very high tomorrow. Which having enough moisture is one of the key ingredients to severe weather. And since we don't have a whole lot of that, the severe weather threat is a little bit lower than what it actually could be. We could be talking about more of a moderate risk for tornadoes if it weren't for that. Just keep that in mind. But I don't think we're going to have enough moisture tomorrow to even get to that level. All right, going into Monday, there's going to be another threat of severe weather. As this all moves downstream, we are going to have 2 different areas to watch for, one of which is the main one that you're probably looking at right now, and that's that slight risk of severe weather for the lower Mississippi Valley into East Texas. Main concern here is all modes of severe weather, damaging winds, and as well as a couple of embedded tornadoes in a QLCS are possible. What that means is that there will be a line of storms moving in this direction, and that'll produce that potential for some scattered damaging winds and perhaps a couple of embedded tornadoes and a line of storms. But the one thing that the Storm Prediction Center did mention is that this could get upgraded to an enhanced risk of severe weather that is going to be contingent on there being supercells that fire up ahead of that line of storms. And if that does happen, there is a very high likelihood that there would be an enhanced risk of severe weather added to this area. But there is still a lot of uncertainty whether we will have that potential of supercells being in front of the line of storms. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We'll be keeping you posted with the latest. The other threat of severe weather, by the way, I almost forgot, is the one that's back up in the Midwest. There's actually a marginal threat of severe weather. This may expand into western Illinois as well. This is a bit more of a low-end threat as well. A couple of low-top supercells will be possible. That might produce an isolated damaging windstorm or two, and as well as a couple of tornadoes will also be possible. And again, I do think that'll expand just a little bit, so stay tuned, and again, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Beginning with the Central Plains, as we go into tomorrow, there will be some showers tomorrow morning. This is around 6 in the morning. Notice a lot of rain out there. Not really a whole lot of storm activity, though. Once that all clears out, we'll get some instability growing across areas in Oklahoma and Kansas that'll open the door for some supercells. This is eventually right around 5 o'clock. What we are going to be watching for are these supercells that develop right along that dry line across areas in southern Kansas back into Oklahoma. Eventually, as we go into the evening hours, those storms moving to the northeast, eventually they will likely become clustered by around 8 to 9 o'clock, and those will mostly be damaging windstorms, maybe some large hail, but the severe weather threat will start to dwindle, and eventually as we go into the overnight hours, the severe weather threat will definitely be done by then. It's a very small window. Really, the main concern will be between 4 p.m. Central Time to about 8 or 9 o'clock Central Time, so not a really large window by any means. Then for the southern plains, again, this will be a bit more of a conditional risk of severe weather, but there will probably at least be a couple of storms that fire up around the evening hours, so between about 6 to 10 o'clock tomorrow evening. Those may produce some isolated large hail or damaging winds. The greater concern, though, will be overnight, Sunday night into Monday morning. A linear line of storms will move across the DFW Metroplex. Isolated damaging winds, isolated large hail possible. I think overall, though, the storms are not going to be that crazy. Once we go into Monday morning, those storms are all moving into Arkansas and eventually into East Texas, and by lunchtime, those storms will be moving across Arkansas, southern Missouri, and back into Louisiana, where there will be some damaging wind potential and maybe a couple of embedded tornadoes in that line of storms. And again, what we need to watch for as we go into Monday afternoon will be the potential for a couple of discrete cells to fire up in front of this line of storms, and if that happens, there will likely be an upgraded risk of severe weather with a little bit higher of a tornado risk and perhaps a higher damaging wind risk as well, and perhaps some large hail also being in the equation. And the last thing I want to mention is that there will be a boatload of snow all the way through Wednesday across areas, especially in the northern plains and the Midwest. Notice this area here, going to be talking between 1 to 2 feet of snow, anywhere from about northern Nebraska all the way back into Minnesota and eventually into Canada. Some areas over in Wisconsin will range anywhere from a coating of snow in southern Wisconsin. And if you're in western Wisconsin, you'll have as much as 14 to 15 inches of snowfall on your front doorstep as we go throughout the next few days. So be prepared. Obviously, a lot of snow is to come. Take it slow on the roadways. That is if you must drive, because visibility will be reduced due to the heavy snowfall. We will likely be going live tomorrow, by the way, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel and make sure you have the bell icon clicked down below so you're notified if and when we do go live for that threat of severe weather in the central and southern plains. And then obviously Monday is still to be determined. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already.